Hi, we're down at Cross Media Lab. There's a great buzz this morning. We've already heard a couple of the speakers speak, and we're here with Parmesh from Mahindra & Mahindra and Verve magazine. So we're really excited to hear your top ideas of 2009.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful being here. It's only my second day in New Zealand and I love it already. I'm certainly going to come back. What I spoke about in my talk actually was how I get, I wear different hats as a fashion magazine editor, as a writer, as a venture capitalist. But wearing my VC hat, I spoke about how, I look at businesses that I might want to fund. And I used academia as a lens to look at opportunities. The spaces that I spoke about were media convergence, but where you think of convergence as a cultural process instead of a technological endpoint. I spoke about looking at the bottom of the pyramid, which is looking at poor consumers in villages or in disenfranchised urban areas whom you might not think of as possible consumers, but if you can figure out what they need and if you can figure out how to reach them, they're really, really lucrative business opportunities there. And it's a chance to make a lot of money as well as do a lot of good. And I also spoke about creative ecosystems and mapping those creative ecosystems and finding spaces there within that one could fund.
Yeah, what do you? I really found that part about creative ecosystems really interesting. And New Zealand has a huge mark on creative industries and creative spaces, particularly with Ideologue. What can New Zealand creative industry professionals learn from India?
I think if there's two things that one can take away from an engagement with India, the first is that it's a wonderful space to experiment. Because New Zealand has such few people and India has so many, and because India is still relatively cheaper, if you have an idea that you want to demonstrate proof of concept, India would be a great space to do it. I mean, anything that you start, you'd have like a few 100,000 users almost instantly because it's 1 billion people. A small part of that would be interested. So the kind of traction that you can have and that you can learn and that you can use, whether it's mobile, there's close to 400 million mobile users already. Whether it's the internet, there's only about 50 million users, but only 50 million as compared to say a population of 4 million is a lot. So and I think both these spaces are underserved in terms of innovation and creativity. So if there are ideas that you want to experiment with, I think India is a great space to experiment with. The other is that one often looks at India through the lens of things are difficult, it might be corrupt, and there's so much poverty. It's hard to do business there, and it is. It's a very challenging space to do business, but I think it's really important to look at India through the lens of, despite things being so hard, people are really being very innovative in the way they live their lives, in the way they come out with solutions to problems that you never thought could exist. So whether it's putting together a bunch of wood panels, a water pump, and a steering wheel and making a car that works in villages, or whether it's in designing a wonderful car like the Nano and selling it for a price less than $2,000. India is a great space for looking at innovation that comes out of adversity. And maybe, New Zealand is rich in terms of economic resources, but, there are other spaces where, there are challenges. And if it can look at India as a space of how can we take what we have and make the best of it, I think that could be a valuable lesson for people in New Zealand to learn.
And you mentioned some of the top companies that you're watching, some of the companies like Phonetics. Who are you watching in 2009? Who are your picks of top companies at the moment?
Well, I'm watching all kinds of companies. I like Phonetics because it works on IP. It creates very specific local characters and then thinks about how it wants to monetize them across the mobile space, across the internet or whatever. These are companies that have got traction, that are doing business, that are reaching a level that VCs might want to fund, but that really don't have, there's no model for where they might go in the future, which is why it's a little hard for VCs to kind of fund them, because VCs also like to see some kind of predictability in how their money is going to be spent and grow. But there are spaces that I believe that are the future. I think IP and local content is building communities around local IP, which then you take global, would be an interesting space, and it's stuff that I'm very keen on looking at within the media space for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.